All right, guys. So every single year I teach, everybody's like, why is the final cumulative? Is the final going to be cumulative? Oh my God, it's going to be cumulative. Oh my God. Look, the reality is this. If you go to medical school, you're not going to ask if the final is going to be cumulative because every single thing is interconnected. If you don't understand cardiovascular function and you focus on the leg, the lower leg, you won't understand why, oh, the lower leg is swelling. Maybe there's a problem in the lower leg, or it could be right heart failure. You have to understand how everything works together in order to understand what we're talking about here. And so what I'm going to talk to you today about is concurrent training, which is training for both endurance and strength together. And really, I call it overcoming evolution because we evolved to be endurance athletes. If you are an endurance athlete, having extra muscle mass is selected against. So it's really, really hard to build muscle. For most people, it's really hard to build muscle. And there's 3 or 4 different pathways through which we can build endurance. There's CAM kinase, there's AMP kinase. There's other ones that can, if you knock out both CAM kinase and AMP kinase, there's a third kinase that comes in that doesn't usually do it, but it can do it if need be. That's because it's such an important component of our evolutionary background that we have multiple ways of driving endurance. We don't have multiple ways of driving strength gains. We simply have this translational way of increasing muscle mass. And as we're going to see, a lot of the things we do with our endurance are going to prevent us from gaining strength. So in this series of videos, what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to state how endurance exercise affects your strength gains, describe the type of endurance exercise that limits growth, explain the time course underlying the concurrent training effect, describe how strength exercise alters endurance adaptations, name potential metabolic signals that could drive the effect, illustrate how AMP kinase could potentially limit strength, describe how metabolic stress alters mTOR complex 1 activity, explain how you're going to overcome the inhibition of mTOR1 activity by metabolic stress through a nutritional intervention. And then last, you're going to be able to go back and remember SIRT1 can alter load-induced muscle growth, and you'll be able to remind yourself of how that happens. All right, so this story goes back to 1980, long before you guys were born. I was 10 years old, so it's a long time before you were born. And at this time, a guy named Bob Hickson, who was a power lifter, about 1977, 78, he started working in John Halsey's laboratory at Washington University in St. Louis. So he's this big old power lifter, and he comes into this lab that's known for endurance exercise. And every single day, the boss would do a 10-kilometer run around the park that's right beside the WashU Medical Center. And so Hickson knows he's got to make a good impression, so he gets out there and he runs with the boss. And he's increasing his run. He gets up to the 10 kilometers so he can run with the boss. And he's sitting there and he's talking with the boss during one of these runs. He says, you know what? I keep lifting the same amount. The volume is the same. I'm trying as hard, but I'm losing strength. And the boss turns to him and said, well, that should be the first experiments you do when you have your own laboratory. And true to his word, the first experiment that he did in his own laboratory is he took 3 groups of individuals. 1, he endurance trained them. 2, he strength trained that group. And then 3, they did both the strength and endurance. And what you can see is if you look at the 1 rep max squat, you can see that the endurance training did very little to improve squat function. You're not surprised there. The strength training did a really nice job of increasing strength. You're going up almost 45 kilos in strength. The concurrent training group, it's going up really, really well. And then something goes completely wrong. And you end up with this in-between where your strength, it's not as good as a strength training group alone. It's not as good as endurance. It's better than endurance alone. But it's this in-between. So concurrent training, and this is what you see in a lot of elite athletes, when you do both endurance and strength, your strength is going to be impaired. But it's not just that he's doing, let's go run 3 days a week and let's lift weights 3 days a week and let's see what you do. This is a power lifter. This is a guy who was very, very focused. So his weight training, he did 5 days a week for 10 weeks, exclusively designed to increase leg strength. So he hit legs hard 5 days a week for 10 weeks. All the exercises were performed with as much weight as possible. Let's lift heavy, 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 heavy. They put on 45 kilos of strength in the legs, in the squat. 45 kilos extra in the squat. That's over 100 pounds. So they increased their squat strength by over 100 pounds in 10 weeks. Outstanding performance. And because he's a big powerlifting guy, he's really, really intense. His endurance training isn't, go out and just go around and do some. His endurance training was 6 days a week for 10 weeks. He did, on 3 days a week, he did 6 5-minute at VO2 max, 1 minute of rest. And he did 6 times that. So he did 5 minutes at VO2 max, 1 minute of rest. 5 minutes of VO2 max, 1 minute of rest. Did that 6 times, and that's that. And his running was run as fast as you can for 30 minutes, for the first week, 35 minutes for the second week, and 40 minutes from the third week till the 10th week. So 6 days a week, you are going as hard as you can for, you're looking at, what is it? That's over a half hour of high intensity work each day. All right? So this is not, let's go to the gym and no, this is work your butt off. And this is really having it much more like an elite athlete. Because really what they're doing is 11 training sessions a week. That's a hell of a lot of load. And what he found is that the average strength in the strength group, blew. And the strength and endurance group together, the concurrent training, it went up exactly the same over the first 7 weeks. The strength group, though, continued to increase strength, but the strength increments and actually their strength went down in the strength and endurance group. So you begin to plateau at weeks 7 to 8, and then it actually comes down in 9th and 10th weeks. So what it seems like is happening is you can go, if you're just starting out, you can go and you can do some endurance and some strength together. And you can, if you're your average American and you spend 6 hours a day watching TV, if you get off your ass and you do anything, you're going to get better. If you do strength and endurance, you're going to build your strength and endurance together. There is some point at which you're going to have to make a decision. Do you want to increase your strength or do you want to increase your endurance? If you want to increase your strength, well, that's going to mean that endurance you're doing, you need to really be good about focusing on when you do it, how you do it, and how you support that with nutrition.